All right, so now we come to the last session for the day, last keynote session for the day. But before we do that, a little bit of quick announcement. We just counted the number of tweets that we have had, and it has crossed 2,500 tweets. That is amazing. A big round of applause to every one of you. You guys deserve a big round of applause. Thank you so much for making us trend today. But you know what? We still have an hour left with us. So I want all of you to quickly tweet even more and maybe cross it to 5,000. I'm sure you can do that. We have a lot of people who have opened their Twitter accounts today just to participate in this contest. It's amazing. Request all of you to please put on all your tweets on Twitter with the hashtag DOIS19 and make us trend even more. And let's hope we cross 4,000 tweets. Yes, sir.
Please stay back because after this, we'll have the panel and we also will be giving away the Kindle, the Eco Show, and there's also a prize from the CollabNet side. So we'll have a raffle there for the Eco Dot. So don't go away.
Yes, I'm sure the prizes are the main reason why I think everybody has been tweeting. So I'm sure all of you would want to know who has won this award. So please do stay back. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Our next keynote speaker for the day, she's already with us here on stage. She is an IBM Distinguished Engineer and the Chief Architect for driving the DevOps for Enterprise System Strategy. She's a member of the IBM Academy of Technology and the Academy Leadership Team. In her 32 plus years in IBM alone, she has worked in many areas in development, test, services, sales, and distribution. Currently focusing on bringing open source tooling to Z operating system to allow customers to use the same pipeline on Z operating system on any other platform. In addition, she assists clients in their DevOps transformation, focusing primarily on the enterprise clients with Z operating system. And today, she'll be sharing her thought on the DevOps best practices for enterprises. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our last keynote speaker for the day. Put your hands together for Radcliffe, Mr. Rosalind Radcliffe.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for hosting this event. It has been an absolutely wonderful event. It's the first time I've spent this much time in India, and it has been a pleasure to be here. And I will have to say that I've spent some time modifying my slides for today's session based on the wonderful keynote session from Topo. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't duplicating information. It was absolutely wonderful, but you don't need to hear it that many times from all of us. So I thought I would modify my session a little to give you a different perspective. Though I absolutely agree with Topo, I'm just going to give you some more other options and additional information in different areas. For my session, I'm going to talk about enterprises. Yeah, it'll go away. It'll come back. Not just Z, but I always have a Z on everything I do because, well, I'm a Z person, therefore I have Z. But when I talk about enterprise DevOps, I really mean any organization that's large, that has a set of legacy systems, no matter what those legacy systems run on. So we'll go through a number of discussions in this area. And the first one is product teams. And yes, it's been brought up by everyone. But when I focus on product teams, I look at product teams in large-scale enterprises, and we see that most large enterprises have their own infrastructure. And if you have your own infrastructure, you have to deal with the fact that it has to be maintained and managed in the same way that your applications or products need to be maintained and managed. And it needs to be provided to those product teams as a service. So when we look at this environment, we see the product teams. These teams, you've heard about it from numbers of people over the last 2 days. These product teams are everyone responsible for delivering this product. They're the people from the business all the way through the people who run the system. They're the ones responsible for giving this product to the end clients. And it's everyone. It's that big team, well, or that small team, 2-pizza team. No, it's going to be bigger than 2 pizzas. But that team, that whole team, that team needs to be able to get infrastructure. And if your infrastructure comes from a cloud provider, i.e. public cloud, then you're going to get that capability from them. But you all, most of us, have internal clouds. We also have existing systems that we need to manage. And so that infrastructure is another product team. And it should be managed like a product team. They have business requirements, they have capabilities, and they provide their function as a service to everyone else. The other piece of this is there's going to be a set of shared resources, and I guess everybody likes to pick on DBAs. So DBAs, for example, you're not going to hire 1,000 more DBAs. You're going to have some set of DBAs that are a shared resource in your organization. But you still need to allow the product teams to work entirely independently. So you need to provide the capabilities and the guardrails that the teams need in order to do what they need to do, but the DBAs need to stay out of the way and not be required to do their work. However, they need to be there as a resource when they want function. If you need help optimizing the database, you want additional information, they're there to help, and they're there to maintain the infrastructure in the first place. There are a number of types of resources that end up being shared resources, and having them in the infrastructure product team areas seems to be the best solution. Now, the reason I say that is from the last few years of working with clients, talking with clients who've been going through this transformation, and there have been a number of different attempts at this. So one of the things about best practices is there's some best practices are developed based on maybe failures or bad practices that people try that don't quite work out. So in a number of organizations in the early days of this, I want to move to product teams, we had this problem that they didn't know what to do with the shared resources. So they assigned them to a team. Then what do the other teams do? They can't get their work done. There have been a number of different attempts at different models, and so the reason why I recommend this model is because it has been the most successful in large-scale enterprises. The other thing that's important to recognize about this picture, and it's a little hard to see, but there's this yellow line running through here. When we look at a product team, we think developer. The developers are the largest number of people that build a product, right? Right? No. If you look at products and you look at the number of people who deal with test, who deal with deploy, who deal with run and manage, who deal with a business side, the developers or the traditional development team is probably this smaller part, and then you've got all the rest. So we need to think about this. We're bringing all of those other people that have been working with this product together in this common team. They can now all work together to deliver this value. This movement to product teams is a challenge. It is hard to do. Different companies have tried it different ways. Another bad practice would be to do an organizational change first. I'm going to change my entire organization and restructure it all into product teams and change the management structure into product teams as the first step before I ever try a product team structure. What's the chances that you will have gotten that organization correct? Somewhere near 0, right? So there was a company that decided the best way to do this, and there have been a few, but this one's the best example of a failure. They reorganized first, and 6 months later, the CIO that decided they were going to reorganize first was no longer the CIO of that company, and there was a new CIO who came in And the first thing they did was, okay, the structure's the way it is, we're going to leave it, but we're going to try to do product teams without reorganizing. We're going to work to understand who needs to work together first, and then we'll figure out what the organization really should be. That CIO is still there a number of years later. Another example of when we do this, we need to think about what we're doing. These product teams are a very critical portion of this transformation. When you get to a real product team, you have a lot of value because the whole team can work together well. In the meantime, if you can get them working across the structures, if you can get them the information together, you start to get the value. There have been people talk about crawl, walk, run. Well, the product team, through a matrixed organization, is the crawl stage. Let's all start there if we aren't already doing it. The next thing, these product teams have a value stream. And we need to understand that value stream. We need to understand the value stream all the way from the idea all the way through the customer use, the clients. What does it take to get the idea in the client's hands? That's your value stream. All of the pieces of that. You need to understand all of the steps, all of the stages, all of the people that get in the way of your delivering that value, or help you deliver that value, however you want to see it, and get that set of people as this product team. The other thing we want to do in understanding the full value stream, and this has been discussed, is the idea of measuring the value stream. How do we measure the value stream? How do we understand how to improve? And there are numbers of different people who talk about measuring the value stream in all sorts of different ways, but it's really going to be dependent on how your organization works as to the best way to measure the value stream. The one thing I can say is you can measure waste, and the first thing you want to do is start removing waste. You want to start removing the barriers between these people so that they can work together. The one biggest waste, usually, now there are a couple, but the one biggest one in many ways is that ticketing system. I've got to open a ticket to do something. So the one system that I have a goal of helping organizations get out of is the ticketing system. Let's stop having a ticket between one team and the next to get something accomplished. Have them work together to remove that waste. The other areas of obvious waste are deployment. Automated deployment solves that problem if you automate the entire deployment. You know, everything it takes to do that deployment. And automated testing, yeah, that's the biggest one. Automated testing is required. In order to move faster, we actually have to have the right level of automated testing. So when we take this value stream and break it down a little bit more, we're looking at the DevOps transformation, whatever words you want to use to call it, but this bringing people together, having them work together. In order to get faster, I have to do the automated testing. And I have to do automated testing that's successful. Just because I wrote an automated test and I run it, okay, what good does that do? I have to have an automated test that when I run, it gives me valid results. The other thing about automated testing is I believe that it is possible to have 100% automated testing for parts of your system. Now, I bet there are a bunch of people looking in the room going, you are crazy. I can see a few faces saying you're crazy. If you think about a back-end system, a system that does not have a UI, and it is the back end to a set of applications, There is no reason I can't do 100% automated testing. The only place we have a problem with automated testing is really in the UI, and the other place we never want to do automated testing is in user interface testing, as in users testing the interface. That doesn't mean you shouldn't automate the user interface testing at all, but you should have a user actually look at your user interface, please. I've seen developers build interfaces. I see what they look like. That's not what we want to provide to these end customers. We want to make sure that it's usable, and so that is another place it needs to be manual. But otherwise, this pipeline gets fast only through automated testing. It's another place I want to tell a few stories. In IBM, internally, we have a number of examples of teams that had the same problem everyone else has. They don't have enough automated tests. And when we wanted to move to a continuous delivery cycle to our customers, we had to fix this problem. What is generally the business requirements? They say you're going to ship function to clients as frequently as possible. Function is the #1 priority. Well, in order to get past this problem, and in order to improve quality, we stopped feature development and spent a quarter only building automated tests. You have to do that in order to improve, in order to get faster, and keep your quality. As somebody said, it doesn't do any good, somebody said this week a couple of times, it doesn't do any good to speed up if you haven't got the quality behind it. Because shipping bad code faster is not helpful. In fact, it's very unhelpful. So it's very important to get this automated testing as part of this process in order to get the velocity. Yes, automated deployment improves the velocity in a sense because you've got consistent deployments, but without the automated testing, you cannot get that speed of improvement. The other thing that's important about this value stream and this pipeline, this is the product. If your product has a front-end UI, has a mid-tier, and has a back-end, they are all part of one product team. One product team, not 3 product teams. They can't be separate. They can't be separate groups. They need to be one product team, so they're all working together as part of this to deliver the business value. And in this pipeline, you have to have the quality gates and the security gates in the pipeline. They have to be part of the system so they can't be avoided. When we look at implementations of pipelines, the thing that probably drives me the most nuts is when I see a company that says, we've got a full DevOps pipeline, developers can put code in, it runs a set of tests or whatever, and it deploys to production. And I say, okay, where are the quality gates? And they say, well, developers do testing. It runs through QA. Where are the quality gates in the pipeline? How can you prove you did that? The auditors check later. Okay, no. It has to be part of the system. You have to have these quality gates built in, or you won't know that they're there. The other thing that's important about this is these quality gates need to be measurable and be reasonable for the team. So your products are at varying stages of quality control. Your products are in varying stages of having automated testing and code coverage. You hopefully have brand new products that started with a DevOps pipeline, so you have close to 100% code coverage and you have automated unit tests for all of them, right? All the new stuff. Well, we're going to assume you have all the new stuff that way, because you should. Now we have this other stuff that's been around for a while, and either it's the ZOS stuff that's been around since the 1960s, or it's Java stuff that's still been around for the last 10 years or so. Doesn't really matter. The percentage of automated testing for this might be pretty low. The percentage of unit testing for this might be somewhere near 0 to start out with when you start this process. And the code coverage, the automated code coverage results that you currently have are probably definitely at 0. So your quality gates have to be variable based on where the team is. I need new and changed code covered, but I don't care about all that other stuff because guess what? It's been running in production for the last 30 years. It might not be the best code. I will actually warn you, as you add code quality scanning to your code, you should scan all of your old code. But before you look at the results, understand it's going to be horrible, absolutely horrible, but it doesn't matter because it works. And I know that really shouldn't be true, but it's been working for so many years, it's okay. Just don't make it worse and slowly improve it. It's very important to make sure we do that. The other thing that's important in this plan, these quality gates and this rollout, is in the large-scale legacy systems, you may not want to automatically deploy. You may want to stage that. I liked the conversation earlier about maybe frequency of delivery. Maybe I don't want to deliver lots of times a day. Well, I might never want to deploy in the middle of a batch cycle. I may never want to deploy right before the batch cycle. There's times when it's just not good to deploy a change. I may, if we look at large-scale systems, have a database that has really high utilization. And doing an online change is perfectly possible. It's just a lot harder when it has a really high utilization. So you pick a low utilization time to do that change. So the quality gates and the parts have to be considered as part of this process. The other discussion I've heard some of this weekend, and I think is very important, is the pipeline standardization. But I add a twist to it, which is add your ZOS to it. So add those legacy systems, including ZOS, into the same pipeline. And one of the questions that always comes up in this enterprise environment is I have a way of working on the mainframe that's looked like this for the last 30 years. This is how I do things. I have all of the approvals. I have everything coded into my existing legacy management system. I can't move out of it. I can't change that. But you already have implemented a pipeline somewhere else that actually already satisfies those audit checks. It already has the approvals in it. It may be doing it a different way, a modern way. It may have automation in that, but it exists. You already have a new way of working within your company. Use that new way of working when you bring in your legacy systems and your mainframe systems. Though they will not like it, they need to change. One of the most important things that I like to help explain to clients, large-scale enterprises, is they have a whole bunch of people in their company that are my age and older who don't want to change. We've been doing things exactly the same way for the last 30-some years. And to be clear, I started in IBM 32 years ago on ISPF development, and if you know Z, you know ISPF. And when I walk into most shops, the development process looks exactly the same as when I started in IBM. What else on the planet is the same? Nothing. I mean, really? I know the process works, and I've used this example yesterday, but how many of you still only have a home phone and it is attached to a wall? I mean, everybody has a cell phone now, right? But that home phone that's attached to a wall actually still works. It still works. That's the same thing about this development waterfall process. It still technically works, but it's not reasonable in today. The other thing that's important about this chart is it looks a little different. I'm talking enterprise deployments, I'm talking legacy systems, I'm talking ZOS, and I have an Azure DevOps pipeline on my picture. Well, for those of you who were in my session earlier, you saw me demoing an Azure DevOps pipeline with COBOL. So I don't care what your pipeline is. Your pipeline has been designed based on the way you want to work. Your organization has figured out the right ways of working for you. Take that and apply it to the rest of you, the rest of your organization. You've heard over and over again that you go at the speed of your slowest part. Why make your back-end systems the slowest part? Why make it so hard by using old processes and practices, bring them all together? And when we get enterprises that have a standard way of working, one of the examples that talks a lot about this modern process and practice, Rabobank, they are a large financial institution in the Netherlands that are working on a payment system. They actually have announced they are building the new payment system in COBOL, new payment system in COBOL to run on ZOS, because that's the best language for this business process, and it means it will run at the speed and the reliability and the scale that they need it to run on. Why'd they pick COBOL? I understand that sounds a little strange today as a new development effort, but it's the one language that's understandable 30 years later. So when you write a piece of code in COBOL, it's just English, I can understand it. And 30 years later, I can still just understand it. I can write some really fancy Java code or some really fancy C code, and 2 weeks later, I'm not sure somebody's going to understand it. So that's how they chose it. They have a full modern DevOps pipeline to do this development work. So they don't have to worry about finding developers. It's a full modern development, same process, same capability. Use what the organization is used to using everywhere else. Make the pipeline consistent no matter what system you're working on. You want the consistency, you want the same ways of working. The quality checks might be slightly different because I'm going to focus on new and changed rather than everything. You may have to accept the fact that you don't have complete automation for your testing and you'll have to do some manual testing for a while, but you're going to work on that, make this pipeline as consistent as possible across the board. Because you want everyone going at the same speed. You want everyone being able to work together. And I don't know of many applications that only run on one platform. Most applications have a front end. Many of them have a mid-tier and a back end. So if you have one team doing all of those, it's very important to bring them together. It's one pipeline for the organization where the standardization matters, one way of working to ensure all the teams are coming together. Thank you. Just on time. 2 questions. So I get to ask 2 questions, And the first question is going to be, what is the one way you can speed up your delivery of business value? I saw the hand there first.
Automation.
Nope. That's not exactly what I said. What? No. Over here. Testing, that's it. Yep, you have to
All
do
right, please
test
join us on
automation.
stage. Can we have the gift, please?
Number 2. Number 2. What is the one thing that is easiest to identify as part of a value stream analysis that you need to improve? Value stream analysis.
So we want a new winner,
right here.
not you every
Right
time,
here.
Tanmay.
Identify waste. That's it. Yeah. Yes. Identify
All right,
waste.
can we please
Very
have you on
good.
stage as well? All right, Rosalind, please give this to him.
Thank you.
All right, and the next winner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rosalind, for joining us on stage. And may I now please request Mrs. Sharmila Chaudhary, please join us on stage and felicitate Rosalind Ratcliffe from IBM. I want the biggest round of applause, everyone. This is the last keynote session for the day. Thank you, Rosalind, for joining us today.